Welcome everyone to the class of international business. So, in the last lecture we were discussing about the Heckscher-Ohlin theory, which talked about the labor and capital intensive industries basically and businesses related to that. So, and also we discussed about factors like what should a country, how much should a country trade with other countries, with whom should it trade, and which are the products that it should trade, right. So, then after that we talked about the HO theory, right. So, today we will continuing from there and we will talk about a few more theories, right. So, one of the most interesting and theories was given by Leonteiff. So, Vasily Leonteiff in 1953 he published a result. His interest was to prove that the HO model, that means Heckscher-Ohlin model was correct, and to show that US exports were capital intensive. It was his objective, but interestingly he found a very opposite result, right. What happened was, so it said that the results of the Leonteiff's paradox, which is one of the most famous empirical investigations in economics, right, and is an attempt to test the consistency of the HO model, right, with the US trade patterns. So, it developed a input table from the 1947 data to determine the capital labor ratios used in the production of US exports and imports. And interestingly, Leonteiff found that the US exports used a capital labor ratio of 13,991 per man year, whereas import substitutes used a ratio of 18,184. Let us see what is that. So, the Leonteiff's paradox, there is a key ratio of Kx by Lx. What is Kx? Kx by Lx is the capital requirement per man year for export. What is Km by Lm? The capital requirement per man year for import. Okay. This is export, this is import. Now, as he had already found out, so this value from here, it was 13,991 for exports and imports it was 18,184. So, dividing this he got a ratio of 0.77. Now, you see, given the presumption, what was presumption, that the US was relatively capital abundant. So, there is no doubt that US is one of the economically stronger countries and it has a lot of capital with it. The ratio was, but labor was thought to be the weaker one, right, in terms of capital and labor. Capital was much stronger in terms of the labor, but the ratio was just the reverse of what the HO model had predicted. What is the HO model said? The HO model had said that if a country is good in capital, it would tend to export capital oriented goods, intensive goods, and if it is good in labor, then it would tend to export more of labor intensive goods, right. But Leonteiff reached a paradoxical conclusion that the US, the most capital abundant country in the world, right, exported labor intensive commodities and imported capital intensive commodities. So, it was contrary to exactly what the HO model was talking about. So, it was thought the US should be importing lot of labor intensive goods, but on the contrary it was importing the capital intensive goods, and exporting, it should have been exporting the capital intensive goods, but it has been importing or rather exporting the labor intensive goods. So, it is just the reverse. So, this is what is called as the Leonteiff's paradox, and it is one of the very profound investigations, empirical investigations that has happened in economics. The next theory is called the product life cycle theory. So, Raymond Vernon had given this theory and he says that the international product life cycle theory of trade state that the location of production in certain kinds of products shifts as they go through their life cycles, which consists of 4 stages: introduction, growth, maturity and decline. So, what is this 4 stages? So, it is something like this. First, it is an introduction stage, right. So, there is a very less growth, and then it takes off. So, growth, and then there is a maturity, right, and then there is a decline, right. So, the shape could differ according to the industry and the product, but this is something how it looks like: introduction, growth, maturity and the decline. The introduction stage is marked by evolving product characteristics like innovation in response to the observed need, exporting by the innovating country and evolving product characteristics. So, in the introduction stage, the product is being formulated, it is being just made, and the distribution network, the promotion, everything is being arranged accordingly, right. So, this is the stage where the companies do not make much of a profit, right, and the products are newly being introduced into the market. Second phase is the growth, where there is an increase in export by the innovative country. So, now the country has started making more of these products, and they have become an expert in producing these goods, and they have become specialized experts, right, they have got a specialization. So, now they are producing the goods in a much cheaper and efficient manner. So, there is an increase in the export. Competition increases in this stage when there is a lot of profitability comes in. So, other players try to get into the market for the same product. Increased capital intensity. So, the capital to develop the new products during the growth stage is also increasing, and some foreign production also happens, because you have to cater to a new market because the demand in the foreign markets. So, instead of producing and supplying, as we discussed in the last class, transportation costs are very high when it is a large country like India, China and Russia or the US. So, instead of having it, we will have a production center at that place, right. So, some foreign production also starts happening. So, this is the growth stage. The third stage is the maturity. Now, what is happening in the maturity? In the maturity now, right. So, let us say, so maturity, what is happening? There is a decline in export from the innovating country. Now, why there is a decline in export from the innovating country? The innovating country which made it now finds that new players are coming in who want to produce the same product. Now, these players are producing it in their maybe in their home market or maybe other markets also, but they have an advantage maybe in terms of capital, in terms of better technology. So, what has happened is now they are able to produce at a lower cost than the innovating country, right. So, that becomes a problem. So, there is a decline has started in the exports, right, and other countries like India, the China, which are the new countries which are have developed, now they are growing faster and they are exporting more goods, which earlier was being done by some of the developed countries maybe. More product standardization. Now, this is the stage where during the maturity there is no new products or new differentiation being created. The products are more or less standardized. So, it becomes simpler to produce, economies of scale are achieved, it is good, that is the positive side. Again, capital intensity is required because new players are coming in, competition is rising. So, competition of price comes in. What it says? Longer production run reduce the per unit cost, the economies of scale which I am saying. So, now there is a increased competition in price. So, advantage will be taken over by a country or a company which produces in a large bulk and minimizes its cost. Okay. Production startups in emerging economies. So, now new production is starting in the emerging economies like India, Mexico, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, right. The last stage is the decline, a concentration of production in the developing countries. Now, large production base has started even in the developing countries. The innovative country now finds it is absolutely uneconomical to produce it on their own. So, they become a net importer and now they have stopped completely exporting. Okay. Look at this diagram. During its life cycle, focus on a product's production and market location often shifts. So, this is what we had said. So, product location. So, what is happening to product location in the introduction, growth, maturity and decline? Let us see. In innovating, usually in innovating country. So, the country which innovated, right, let us say the developed country. Growth in innovating and other industrial countries. Now, it shifts to the other industrial countries. From there it goes to multiple countries. Now, more number of countries, the developing nations are also slowly coming in. Decline stage, now it is becoming mainly in the developing nations, right, and from the developing nations now this will get exported to the developed nations, mainly in the innovating country with some export. So, it is a first it is a home market. So, we talk about the ethnocentrism, if you remember ethnocentrism, polycentrism, right, regiocentrism, geocentrism, we had spoken in one class if you remember that. So, it comes to the mostly focused in the home, right. Second, what happens in the growth stage, mainly in the industrial countries, right. So, the market location is where it is being sold, mainly in the industrial countries, and shift in exports to the foreign production replaces export in some other markets too. What happens in maturity? During maturity, the growth the market location, the market expands in the developing countries, and there is this fall in the decrease in the industrial countries or the innovative country included, right. During the decline stage, most of the market location shifts to the developing countries, and some developing country start exporting too, they have started exporting in a large way. Competitive factors. Now, coming to the competitive factors, what happens to the competition? During the introduction, it is a monopoly situation. So, there is only one player or somebody one only who is making it. Sales based on uniqueness rather than the price. So, price is not a factor during the introduction stage. It is the uniqueness of the product, how important the product is, how much demand the product has created, right, and new characteristics that are evolving in the product, that is the introduction stage. When the product comes to the growth stage now, how does the competition change? Fast growing demand. So, demand is started growing, number of competitors are increasing, some competitors start price cutting. So, there is a price cutting. Now, the developed countries will have a disadvantage, because they have put in lot of they had R&D costs involved, they had introduction, during the introduction a product is not immediately accepted by the market. So, there is a law of diffusion, it takes time to diffuse into the market. So, that time which they had spent now is they did not have much sales in that time. So, they made some losses. Now, these losses will not be made by the developing countries, because already the market is now created. Okay. So, some companies begin price cutting and the product is becoming more standardized. During the maturity stage, overall stabilized demand. So, demand is more or less known, there is no much chance of expansion. Competitors decreases. Now, some of the competitors will think of to stop the production. Price is very important, because now it is a price competition. Anybody who can supply the product at a lower cost will win the war, chances are very fair. Finally, if you come to the decline stage, overall decline starts, price is the key weapon, a number of producers continues to decline, right. So, these are some of the things that happen, characteristics in the decline stage. Now, in terms of production technology, when we come, what happens to their introduction, growth, maturity and decline? Let us see. So, during the introduction stage you have short production runs. Why? Because you do not know how much to produce. So, you do not know exactly you cannot forecast the demand in the market. Evolving methods to coincide with the product evolution. So, new methods are getting evolved, right. High labor input and labor skills relative to capital. So, a lot of labor inputs are required, labor skills are required, because it is a new product and nobody is aware. So, once the awareness comes, then only you can adjust the technology to suit that production. So, that is not possible in the introduction stage. Growth stage, what is happening? Capital input increases. So, now more money is being put into the develop the technology related to this product. Methods are more or less standardized. Okay. So, now there is some sense okay, what is the demand, what is the design that is required by the customer, all things are known. In the maturity now, long production runs, because it is a continuous production, because the demands are known and we will try to achieve economies of scale, and we would not do lot of switching during the production. So, switching costs are also less, right, which is more in the introduction stage. Highly standardized and less labor needed now, technology does most of the things. In the decline stage, unskilled labor or mechanized long production runs. Why? Because now this is the stage where the developing countries are making it. Now, the developed countries have left this market, this product. So, they are not interested to get into it anymore, rather they would try to get into new products and they would allow this developing countries to import this same product to them. So, right. So, this is the international product life cycle theory. Now, what are the limitations of this PLC theory? Let us see. Some products conform to the dynamics of the PLC product life cycle, for example, ballpoint pen, calculator, small cars, mobile phones, etc. However, if transportation costs are very high, there is little opportunity for export sales regardless of the stage in the life cycle. So, you are in an introduction stage also, but still you would not like to export to other countries, because you find that the transportation costs are very high and you have not achieved those kind of economies where the production costs are very low. Not all products conform to the dynamics. Example, products with a very rapid innovation. So, suppose every 15 days a new product is emerging, a new design is emerging. So, how would you tend to export? Because by the time you are ready with an order, a new design is emerging. So, that is the challenge. Luxury products for which cost is of little concern. So, we assume that from the introduction towards the movement towards the maturity, the cost of production went down, right, because of standardization and more knowledge about the production of the product and all. So, but luxury products they are products in which price is not a concern. So, people are not bothered. So, these products will fall as a limitation to the PLC theory. And third, products that require specialized technical labor. So, this is something which others cannot copy. So, we said in this, if you see what we said, now something is being made in the introduction stage, and during growth more people are copying that or imitating that, and by the time it is declining, the innovative countries has stopped producing and now it is being made in some other country, right, the developing country. But that will not happen if a particular skill is required and that skill is not available with others, right. Then we go from the PLC to the Porter's diamond theory, the Porter's national competitive advantage given by Michael Porter. So, Michael Porter theorizes that 4 attributes of a nation shape the environment in which local firms compete. So, what are the 4? Let us see. The factor endowments, that means your land, labor, capital. Demand conditions, what is the demand? Consumer demand, right. Related and supporting industries. So, suppose to produce a product, you require several other ancillary or auxiliary parts and services. Are they sufficiently available? Firm strategy, structure and rivalry. So, what intense competition in the market is there. So, these 4 things will decide a nation's competitive advantage. So, this is also there is a book titled in the same name by Michael Porter. If you want, you can go through it also. It is a very good book with very lucid examples. The first point, factor endowment. He says a nation's position in factors of production to compete in a given industry, right. Basic factors are like natural resources, the climatic condition, the location, if it is close to some for example port or sea or something, it has a advantage of shipping, easy transportation. Otherwise, for example, if you see some other places, for example Mongolia is centered and it is in a place where the transportation cost would be immense, because there is hardly any connectivity, good connectivity through any way. So, and if you go by air, it becomes very expensive, and demographics and advanced factors like communication infrastructure, sophisticated and skilled labor, research facilities and technical know-how, right. Unlike the naturally endowed basic factors, advanced factors are a product of investment by individuals, companies and governments. So, your natural are what is God given, right. But whatever you did in the advanced factors, that is not because of that is not available. So, that has been developed by people through research and through scientific through scientific approach, and lot of capital needs to be infused into it, right. So, R&D is involved in there. Example, you see Switzerland was the first country to experience labor shortage. They abandoned all the labor intensive watches and concentrated on only innovative high end watches. They are very good in pharmaceutical, in the area of pharmaceutical. Why? Because pharmaceutical industries are not labor, they do not require labor, they are more technically technology oriented, right. So, all innovative high end industries became a pattern of they grew in Switzerland. On the other hand, you see Saudi Arabia is second largest oil producer in the world after US, and it is supplying lot of oil to other countries because that is a natural resource with it, right. Second condition is the demand condition. What it is saying? The nature of home demand for the country's product or service. So, what is the demand in the home country? A nation's firms gain competitive advantage if the domestic consumers are sophisticated and demanding. Why it is an advantage? Because it creates for innovation and quality. So, more demanding the products the people in the country are. So, there would be a large demand for every time the demand would change because of a pressure in the society, peer pressure, status and all these things. The consumers would like to have all the time new products. So, new innovations is a mandatory thing that has to be done. So, that supports the companies and the home country, right. You see Japan's sophisticated and knowledgeable buyers of cameras helped the Japanese camera industry to improve the product quality and to introduce innovative models, right. Similarly, the French wine industry, the French are so sophisticated for wine consumers that they force and help the French wineries to produce high quality wines. So, this has all happened because the local people, you see why Indians have an advantage when it comes to things like algorithms, because the Indians have been always good at mathematics, right. So, our ancestors and from forefathers, it has been coded in our gene. For example, I mean to say that we are naturally good at maths. So, that is why Indians you will see they are very good IT people, there are very good scientists from India. So, that is the basic reason is that we are good at statistics and mathematics, right. Relating and supporting industry, the presence or absence of supplier industries and related industries are that are internationally competitive. What it does it mean? Can spill over and contribute to other industries, right. Successful industries within a country tend to be grouped into clusters. For example, the technological leadership in the US semiconductor industry provided the basis for US success in personal computers. Had US not had an advantage of semiconductors, it would not have been one of the largest producers of computers, personal computers, and several other technically advanced electronic products, including the Apple maybe, right, the Apple like products. So, what it says, suppose a country has is producing something, and whatever the local, the other auxiliary parts are required to produce the main product, a main product may require, the OEM may require several other products, right. So, if these products are not available, then it becomes very difficult. Okay. Bangladesh textile industry, Bangladesh has a vibrant network of supporting industries that supply input to its garment manufacturers. So, for a garment manufacturer there are several other things that are required, right, in terms of technology and other support. So, 75% of all the inputs that a textile industry requires are made locally, which saves the transportation and storage costs and even import duties. So, that is why Bangladesh has been even when the the quota system was abolished, right, after the Uruguay round, still everybody felt that Bangladesh would do very badly in the textile sector because it was only getting a protection, a quota, but it did not happen that way. Bangladesh rather did better and better in terms of the textile export, right. The last point is the firm strategy, structure and rivalry. So, the conditions governing how companies are created, organized and managed, and the nature of the domestic rivalry, right. So, Porter makes two important points. First, different nations are characterized by different management ideologies, right. For example, you see there is a very famous saying that the Japanese are always, they want to be 100% correct. On the other hand, the US management would like to be close to 100%, but not 100%, right, because that difference in the last few percentage takes a lot of time and effort, right. So, this ideological difference is a reason which also creates a structural difference, okay, which either help them or do not help them to build national competitive advantage. Now, for example, when we talk about Germany and we talk about machines, we cannot think other than German machines. Why? Because these people have created and they have organized and managed and they have created such companies which are excellent in producing this kind of goods, right. Second, the dynamic domestic rivalry induces firms to look for ways to improve efficiency. Now, in Germany for example, you see if there are so many producers of engines and high tech machines, then automatically there is a competition, and you see any trade starts from the home market, right. So, we say first is ethnocentric. So, first thing is that whether you are, how you are doing good. Once you do good in the domestic market, then generally then you go to the export or the international market. It is never that somebody starts producing a new product for the international market. It cannot happen. Yes, if the product is already existing and a new manufacturer tries to install a assembly or a commission a plant and export it, that is a different story. But a new product starting and somebody wants to directly export it, it is not possible, because he or she himself, the company himself is not sure about the quality of the product, right. So, what it says, the domestic rivalry induces firms to look for ways to improve efficiency, create pressures to innovate and to improve quality. So, this reduces the cost and helps investing in the upgrading the advanced factors. So, Now, the companies would look in to put in more money, invest more money to upgrade their technologies to produce at a much lesser cost and at a better quality product, right. So, one example is the Indian telecom industry. So, Indian telecom industry is now looking at because of a huge market, many of the companies are coming to India and establishing their plants, right, to set up to buy to produce the phones, right, mobile phones especially. So, this is what even you go to the, if you look at India is still second example I would give, the number one I can think of is China. So, why is that every product is being made in China? Because China, the production the government is supporting production in China so much that it has helped creating lot of pressure among the Chinese companies, which has resulted them to be more efficient in terms of production, technology and everything. And that is why when they export the same good to other countries, they can easily beat them because of a high advantage in terms of the price and even a very good quality also. Quality, it is not always that the Chinese goods are inferior, there is a notion that Chinese goods are inferior, that is not correct, right. They have achieved an advantage because they have the government support has and it has streamlined the production system so well that today China can easily compete with many of the countries and it has excelled than many of the countries in terms of its production, right. So, this example you can take, Japan has high priced land and so its factory space is at a premium. This leads to just in time inventory techniques. So, what is just in time? I would like the inventory only at the time when I require it. So, I do not want to store it in some place because storage is more costlier and I do not have space. So, Japanese firms can't have a lot of stock taking up space. So, to cope with the potential of not having goods around when they need it, they are using the just in time inventory, right. Toyota operates using a JIT inventory relying on its supply chain to deliver the part it needs to build cars. The parts needed to manufacture the cars do not arrive before or after they are needed, rather they arrive just as they are needed. So, this is the just in time theory. So, the policy implications of the Porter demand will maybe we will wind up here. So, what it says, Porter suggests that it is in the best interest of business for a firm to invest in upgrading advanced factors of production. For example, to invest in better training for its employees, to increase its commitment to research and development. So, more R&D, new products, new innovations and new innovations means new new markets, right. To lobby the government to adopt policies that have a favorable impact on each component of the national diamond. So, the four parts, right. Businesses should urge government. So, this is the policy implication of what Michael Porter said. Businesses should urge government to increase investment in education, infra and basic research. So, this is a transition time which India is going through. So, India has grown very fast in the last few years and especially in the last 5-6 years because of a huge investment in infrastructure and education. So, the Indian governments have done it very nicely. They have tried to develop the education infrastructure because earlier it was not so good and India was very under kind of a developing nation only, but today the word developing for India may not be suitable. It is more of a developed nation, close to a developed nation, and to adopt policies that promote strong competition within the domestic markets. This is a one limitation. So, what are the limitations? Let us see. Entrepreneur may face favorable conditions for many different lines of business, right. So, what it says, limitations of the Porter's theory, the existence of 4 favorable conditions does not guarantee that an industry will develop in a given local. So, if you think that I have an advantage of labor, I will do good in a labor intensive industry, may not hold correct. You see, for example, conditions in Switzerland would seem to have favored success in the personal computer space, but somehow Swiss companies prefer to protect their global position in product lines such as watches and scientific instrument rather than the other personal computer, right. Even though an absolute advantage may exist had they gone for the personal computer. So, that does not happen. Why? Because the entrepreneur may face the favorable conditions for some other good, right, or that looking at the demand, right. Second limitation is what it says is that the concerns the increased ability of the companies to attend market information, production factors and supplies from abroad. For example, earlier times it was highly restrictive. So, if you wanted to get something from abroad, it was a challenge, but today capital and managers are now internationally mobile. So, you can there is an easy flow of money and easy flow of human resource. Materials and components are now more easily brought in from abroad because of advancement in transportation and relaxation of import restrictions. So, because of the free trade theory, now it has become more easy, right. So, Porter's theory has not been sufficiently tested to know how well it holds up. So far it has not been tested. So, these are some of the limitations, right. So, today we will wind up with this Porter's theory, where it speaks about what are the 4 factors and how they influence any government, any trade, right, within a country. And today we discussed about these things, the Leonteiff's paradox and then Porter's model, and I hope you are clear with it. So, we will continue from here in the next class, and by then take care. Thank you very much.